There were many dangers. Now, what was most feared was a sinking, a cave-in. A sinking is when you are working here, for example. There is another one below, and you are sank up. There is no salvation there. There were many areas here where, to be a miner, you didn't need to be strong, but you had to have skill and know how to handle the mine. There was little security, because they used to take a goldfinch, a man with a goldfinch in a cage. If there was fire damp, because fire damp is a deadly thing, the goldfinch would die, and sometimes the countryman who was carrying the goldfinch would die too, there with it. Of course, the one carrying it had to be careful. When the canary twisted its head a little, they had to go out with it. They didn't have to let it die. What is the fire damp? The one I met was the watchman of the benzine lamps. Methane gas is a very explosive gas. In a minimum time, it causes death by inhalation of the gas. The oxygen is consumed and the death occurs. The recognition of fire damp was sacred. No one could be allowed to enter to any place in a sack bottom without the watchman having arrived first. Because the moment the fire damp reached 1.5%, you had to stop the machines and even get the personnel out of the cuttings and put more ventilation or try to get it cleaned up before letting them back in. I lived the moment when 14 lost their lives, but what happened? They were sent to warn that the machine was sparking a lot, the extraction machine, and everything was infested with fire damp. There was an explosion with the sparks from the machine because it was full of fire damp up to the entrance of the mine. Of fire damp, one of the ones that caused the greatest impact here at the Sabero coal mine was in 1969. I think it was in June. A miner and his assistant were buried by a fire damp explosion. He didn't have time to climb up. The miner and the helper had to go down, and when they started the ascent, the explosion of coal and fire damp took place. There they were left covered. The water was also another of the dangers that we had on more than one occasion. There were blowouts, and unfortunately, we let a massive sink, took what was a gallery, and blocked it completely. We were there, 22. They knew there was water there, but no, pull another meter, and it burst. By the upper part, they had already started to sink it to close the upper part, but it remained in a vault. All of us who were there went out that way, through the vault. Of course, the first ones, there were 2 or 3 below who, when they saw that so much water was coming down, were able to escape and be safe. We couldn't get up there where they were sinking, so we pulled up and went out to the gallery. We all went out that way. When we went around the floor and went down, there was only one missing, and he stayed there. It took us 3 months to get him out. There were serious accidents from the water bags. One accident also killed 2 people who were loading coal wagons. Judging by the noise that it made, it was a lot of water. The diseases inherent to the work, here it was silicosis. Where a lot of water fell, bronchial diseases. That was all aggravated. I have known relatives of mine who died of silicosis at the age of 41. Silicosis is the dust from the stone. The coal dust is expelled and does not do so much damage to the lungs, but the stone dust causes a wound and it heals. The lung goes less and less, and that's why death occurs. You don't breathe enough. That is silicosis. Sad silicosis. Drillers gathering dust, which was a real hell. With sponges or masks, which is a washing sponge, they couldn't stand them because they had them as if to say, and the dust itself, breathing. It was blocking their breathing. A lot of young people aged 28, 30 years old fell, and many people died from silicosis. I was the team leader for the General Piping Network. The General Piping Network meant everything. Let me explain. Without water and air, the track doesn't work. The piping were the ducts where the water went, the air, and all that kind of stuff. Then, ventilation piping to ventilate. The job of a pipe fitter is to take care of the miners on the operations, to put pipes, to put fire damp hoses, to take care of the fire damp and everything. In addition to the fact that we had the miner, the assistant picker, the shoring man, and all that category, there are the electromechanics and the pipe fitters. You have to put air in the front. You have to assemble the equipment in the cellar. You have to lengthen it. To move forward, you have to move forward. Some plates weighed 75 kilos. Later, we had water, and then there wasn't so much dust or anything because to load the dirt, we used to pour water to wet it well so that it wouldn't create dust. To sweep, we had water. Mining in the 40s, 50s, and almost the beginning of the 60s, the signs of accidents were very big. Those were the scourge of this profession. There was a couple that had been formed a short time ago, and they arrived there. They were going to shot a guide, and what happened? They had been pouring the rubble for the backfill. The air shot had jammed, and they did not appreciate this system, which was still fired with a fuse. They set fire. When the explosion occurs, there's a very large expansion of wind, and everything that catches it is blown away. The little boy, with such bad luck that he was thrown head first and hit against a pole of the ventilation system and died in the act. The other one went around, marched up to the cut, and nothing happened to him because, I repeat, the ventilation comes this way, so the gases or anything that could produce the explosion did not affect him. We were in one of them, and I was about 4 meters behind, giving a second hand. In front of us was a tanker, a guy named Barry. When I felt the wood, I went over there, and the miner who was in the cut that sank, that was swallowed up underneath, with luck he grabbed the hammer, and the hammer hose held him down, but he had lost consciousness and did not let go of the hammer. We pulled him up as best we could, already crawling because otherwise the gas ventilating you from above, it knocks you down, and there is nothing we could do. As we could, cutting the pipe and putting it in for us, we pulled him up and he reacted. For example, when I was picking above me, there was another guy picking. He was taking out sinking Shiva, and the Shiva caught him. The sinking caught him and blew it up. We had to take him out to the street on a stretcher that we made out of planks, and we took him out. I don't know why they decided to leave a well in the middle of the rubble for ventilation. That well had to be supported with wood, and we had to make sure that it was not obstructed, that the ventilation... In this, there were 2 miners. The thing was flattened, and they were left there, the 2 of them, the poor ones. You know, to get them out from underneath, we had to pull out some wagons of rubble until they were removed. That was one of the accidents.